BetOnline.ag is going to take care of all of your gambling needs. We've got Pro Bowl Skills Challenge. We've got to wait a week until Super Bowl 57 between the Chiefs and the Eagles. If you have a bet on any sports action, BetOnline.ag is the place to do it.
365, 24/7, 7 days a week. Make sure, regardless on what sport it is, y'all go to betonline.ag.
You can see that link on your screen right now. Use our promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV. That's also on your screen right now. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers show on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, Pittsburgh Steelers scout, two-time Super Bowl champion, and 12-year veteran of the Steelers, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, I swear you were ducking me because I correctly predicted this Super Bowl matchup. You've been on the road at Senior Bowl. It's been too many moons since I've seen your face. Good morning. How you doing this morning, my man?
I'm good, Mark. How you doing, bro?
I am fantastic. It is Friday, and let's just get right into it, Ike. You were at the Senior Bowl. Take off. The floor is yours. What did you see? Who did you see? What stuck out to you? And we'll go from there. I'll piggyback off you, but you were boots on the ground scouting for the Steelers there, an incredible opportunity. What was your experience like?
First time ever in Mobile, Alabama. Make sure y'all go to Succo, S-O-C-O. It's a soul food spot. I wind up going twice in a row. Make sure y'all go to Slippery Foot. It's also downtown. Both of them downtown, Mobile, Alabama. It's a breakfast spot. So from like 8 to 2 is when they open. Open to close. Then after you go there, make sure y'all go to Succo, S-O-C-O, downtown as well. A nice little soul food spot. Man, they got everything you're looking for. But just getting back to your question, Mark, because I know you're a foodie at times.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, getting back to your question, that was my first time, so it was a great experience for me. Now I know how this billion-dollar industry works when it comes down to running a football team. I got to see Coach T live in person, Omar Khan, the GM, in person. Calvin Fisher, who was one of the head scouts, Danny Colbert Jr., who was the director of college personnel, and the assistant GM. I just got to see them work in motion, so it was just good seeing. I always thought behind the scenes, but actually seeing how they wake up, turn into the Hulk during that time. That was fun for me. But I saw a few corners that I had that they had me run tape on and grade. I got to see them live in person, So we interviewed 70 something players. I got to go through that process, just listening and seeing where these kids come from, what they had to go through to get to where they are. That was very impressive to me. But me, as far as like being a scout, I'm just going through the process, doing everything the ups have me doing. But just getting to see the kids live in person, practice is everything. Listening to them talk, then actually getting on the field. So for me, it's like you having a baby, and you want to see your baby grow. Like if you like somebody at a particular position, you just want to see them grow because you want to be able to drive them because you see they might be able to help the team and the organization. So, Mark, man, it was just fun getting to see a lot of coaches, getting to see a lot of other scouts, networking. Saw a lot of colleges there as well representing the players that they had at the school. So for me, man, it was just a totally good situation, a totally good experience. But for me, man, I just appreciate, the Rooneys and that family to allow me to have this opportunity. One, I'm not taking for granted, but yeah, Mobile, Alabama showed nothing but love, man. It's a good old country city. Town.
All right. Ike, we're a lot to unpack there. I'm going to start off. This is the number one question I wanted to ask you coming into today's show.
Okay.
Did you see Mike Tomlin give any prospect the same look he gave George Pickens at the Georgia Pro Day around this time a year ago?
Yeah, you got damn right. But I'm not gonna say. Yeah, I saw a few.
Okay.
You, but I'm not gonna say. But that's Coach T. Like Coach T, football and coaching and teaching is an addiction for Coach T. I finally saw that. Like it's not a job for him. Like he's addicted to football. He's addicted to the process. He's addicted to coaching. He's addicted to teaching. He loves going through everything you got to go through. Like Coach T, I was like, hey, Coach T, I ain't never seen this side of Coach T before. Like I seen him as a coach. I seen him getting athletes' personal lives and help them to grow and develop to be men. But I ain't never seen coach in this kind of environment. So I was just sitting because Coach T was on the field. I'm sure everybody saw Coach T on the field from TV.
Yeah.
I was sitting up in the suites and I'm just looking at Coach T and how he moving. And I'm like, I told I told DC, matter of fact, I told Dan and Cove, I'm like, man, this is addiction for Coach. I say this is a drug for Coach. Coach just really love football. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yep. So just to see that from Coach T, I'm like, man, now I see why he can go from 2-6 to 9-8 during the course of a season. Because you have to love, you have to be an addict, a student, a teacher, a dad, an uncle, a CEO, a coach of the game, and everybody can't wear them hats, Mark. But if it's one person who have shown over the course of plenty of years, it's Coach T.
I am watching from afar, and I see on my Twitter feed it just pops up where it's like Mike Tomlin not officially coaching at the Senior Bowl, but saunters onto the field. And who's going to say no to Mike Tomlin given his experience, what he brings to the table, his knowledge as well? And it was just like, oh, man, here we go yet again, because we've seen this time and time again, whether it's at different combines, at different college all-star games in advance of the draft. He does the full process. And I also think that it's telling that he, Omar Khan, and the Rooney families are all in sync and in synergy with one another, with what they're trying to do collectively as an organization. And Ike, I'm telling you this right now, collectively throughout sports, not just the NFL, that's very rare.
Yeah,
that is very rare.
Yeah, the fact that the coaches on both sides, the American and national side, allowed Coach T to be on the field, which he was allowed to be on the field anyway. Like, who's going to tell
Who's going to say no? Who's going to say no?
Yeah, who's going to say no to Coach T? Like, Coach T is on the field to help. He ain't on the field to do anything else but to help in any particular way he can. So Coach T got on the field. He was more of a servant to like coaches. Like, anything y'all need, just let me know. Matt, this is y'all realm. I'm just here to serve. So, but at the same time, we're gonna tell Coach T no. Like, if you got a coach like that, and I heard one of the players say like they were starstruck over Coach T. So if you got a coach like that who's been that successful in that organization, who gonna tell them no in football? Like, if Coach T came in and I don't care. Coach T is more than just like a football coach. He's a great speaker as well. So wherever Coach T at, you always got to roll out the red carpet. But like I said, ain't nobody gonna tell Coach T no.
The Steelers have the 17th pick. They have the 32nd pick in the trade for Chase Claypool to the Bears. They have their 49th pick. Those are their first and second round picks, 3 picks in the top 50, Ike. And I was trying to figure out which position group do I want to go with first. I do want to get your insight about the defensive backs. But yesterday I had the chance to speak with NFL draft analyst Joe DeLeon with the Bleav Network, and he kept bringing up Wisconsin defensive lineman. I've got his name in my notes here, Keeanu Benton. And it was just like, Ike, I love TJ Watt up front, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward and company. But from the reports I read and from the footage that I saw, this was a player who just consistently caused disruption. What did you see from the Wisconsin product in your eyes and your opinion during practice?
Yeah, Keanu just from my perspective just dominated, being consistent at dominating. For a guy to be that big and that agile was very impressive. And that's a lot of things you can't coach. That's just God-given talent. Keanu had to work on that and not be lazy on his ability. And for him, there is no limit. There ain't no ceiling for him. So Keanu just dominated. And then you see the short amount of space between the center and the guards, how much they can work with, and it's little to nothing. So for him to have a box full of tools to be able to maneuver, bull rush, spin, get skinny. What I mean by get skinny is turn side and make sure you don't give the offensive guard, or tackle, or center your whole body. Was very, very impressive. A quick first step was very impressive. So when I saw that from Keanu, I was like, man, this dude's special. Then you just keep hearing his name coming up over and over and over and over and over. And then you just watch him on tape and you watch him in practice. He's like, all right, this little dude, the real deal.
Joe told me, and it's not to say he's Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald-like in the way that he plays. And here's the reality with the Steelers, too. We love Cam Hayward. He's an all-pro player. He's been fantastic. He's 33 years old. So you've got to get some additional depth there. I think it's something that the Steelers did with Larry Ogunjobi, a player who's now going to be a free agent. You got to decide, are you going to bring him back? I know they bring in DeMarvin Leal as well, but to me, there's nothing wrong with improving what you can do up front at the line of scrimmage. And from what Joe told me, Ike, and if this sentiment is wrong, please say so. But he was saying the linemen were the thing, at least at the Senior Bowl. And I know you don't have the underclassmen players, but the linemen were the most impressive group of, compared to the skill position players. He said the linemen really stuck out to him.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever really got to see offensive linemen work. Like I see it on tape, but that's like, when I play watching game tape. but actually in practice, to see it up close, to see them live, to see them go through drills, to see them do one-on-ones, it's like when I was at practice, you heard it from a distance when somebody was kicking somebody's ass. Like you heard it, you turn around and look, it's too late. Then they might show it in the meeting or something. But just to see it live in person, like I would say between that O and D line, that was very impressive. That was probably the strength in my mind for the Senior Bowl between those two. It's a lot of talent between the offense and defensive line, and them boys was getting after it respectfully.
Were there any other defensive linemen that stuck out to you, Ike? Or if you want to go to the DBs, we can. But did you see any other D linemen that stuck out to you at the Senior Bowl practices?
They had some inside linebackers that stuck out to me. Ivan Pace, Cincinnati, he stuck out to me. My young man from Jackson State, he was a dog. So it was a few linebackers that I did like. Interior guys, they handle their business. So they had a few offensive linemen I don't really want to say because I don't really want to get too much in depth.
Okay.
But yeah, man, it was impressive. And like you said, Mark, if you want to talk about the strength in my mind to this bowl game, it would have to be the offense and defensive lineman that was there.
All right, Ike, I'm on record saying this because you had Pouncey and David DeCastro anchor the interior of the Steelers line for a decade. DeCastro, the last offensive lineman the Steelers drafted in the first or the second round. That is a streak I would like to see come to an end this year. I've said this before, but I will say that again. Let's go. Do you want to go to offensive linemen? You want to go to DBs, Ike? You direct me here and we'll take off.
Well, I had a few DBs that we talked about during the fall that I got an opportunity to see during the Senior Bowl, so Tariq was very impressive in my mind. Julius Brent, Kansas State, 6'3". And when you say 6'3" for the NFL, it's really 6'5" on your driver's license. So he was really tall. He was tall as heck. So got an opportunity to see some of those guys. Georgia safety.
Christopher Smith.
Yeah, he was very well coached. You can tell Coach Kirby, when it comes down to that secondary, man, them guys well coached. The IQ super high. So just seeing a couple of guys that I like watching up close in person, seeing how they move in the environment where there's nothing but other, all-stars. So you just from a DB perspective, you kind of want to see every scenario. You want to see them get beat, see how they come back and respond. You want to see them catch a cramp, come back and see if they get back in the game. You want to see if they have some kind of physicality, getting off wide receiver blocks and wanting to make the tackle. So that's like the small things I see. You want to see them get hit with a double move, can they recover from it? So it's just a few things. You want to see the consistency as well. Can he play off? Can he play bump and run? What does he like to do in certain situations, 32, 35? So, you got to look at all that, from a left corner to a right corner. If you're a right corner, usually your best tackler from a right corner perspective because the quarterbacks are right-handed, and the weak side linebacker usually don't get out as fast because he's looking the other way. The strength to the defense is always to the left. The left side corner, you got to be very instinctive. Your IQ got to be high because you got to be able to read formations because usually the quarterback is throwing to the right side, which is the left side of the defense. So it's just looking at all that kind of stuff, Mark, and I got an opportunity to see these guys up close in person.
Couple things Joe told me about, and he was talking about the linemen when he said this, but they're going through individual drills, some one-on-ones too, where your muscle memory, Ike, from going left to right, right to left, it's not that a player's not able to do that, but the muscle memory and the footwork and the technique that is taught. And he said that really stuck out with a few linemen. But he wanted me to ask you about Christopher Smith out of Georgia specifically, just because this was a player who played on a dominant Georgia defense filled with dogs. And he said that, Smith really stuck out to him because his ability was more so showcased. Whereas when he was at Georgia, you have such a dominant front seven, you really don't have to do a ton on the back end. And so he was saying how, like, if he was matched up a tight end, he could lock him up. If he was playing in the nickel and guarding receivers, he could do that. And he said this was just a player that really stuck out to him. So to hear you say that, even before I ask you a question, lets me know, hey, Joe's got a good eye for this as well.
Yeah, Chris did his thing. He did his thing. I mean, he's just super. Them boys got to wait two years. And what I like about just talking to the Georgia athletes, they love competing with each other. They don't mind waiting their freshman and sophomore year to play their junior and senior year because they know guys in front and behind them are dogs just as well as them, literally on the field. So what Coach Kirby have done, because he is a secondary coach, he did play in the secondary when he played. Him and Coach Muschamp. Those two guys, they live, they fiery. When you have a secondary coach, when you have a coach who's a head coach, but by nature he's a secondary coach, he's going to make sure his secondary is well intact. He just so happened to be a head coach, a hell of a recruiting coordinator, and he's getting nothing but dogs coming to Georgia. But yeah, the IQ is just high. The knowledge of football is just high coming from Smith. Could be out of position sometimes, but just knowing formation is going to put him back in position. So when you a DB and you're coming from Kirby Smart, you're coming with a high IQ, and he showed that he displayed that consistently out there on the field.
I'm excited to talk with you in the coming weeks about all of this because we could nerd out about the Senior Bowl, but remember, all of the underclassmen players aren't at the Senior Bowl. It's only for the senior players. So I'm excited to talk to you in the coming weeks when we do our position breakdowns as well, where we go top 5 by position. And there are a ton of guys that we could mention, but it's really, we're starting to do this analysis in advance of April's draft. So a lot of work between now and then, but Ike, we still have got the Super Bowl too. Before we move on and discuss a few other topics here on the show today, Ike, is there anything else you want to make mention of that I haven't asked you about?
No, Mark, you're pretty much hitting it on the head. I think the strength in my mind was the O&D line. I think it was very impressive because a lot of guys played new positions and they learned it just like that. And I'm talking about between the offensive linemen, moving from tackle to guard or from center to guard or from guard to center. Some of these coaches want to see, can these guys, able to adjust on the go in a split second. And them guys did real well. On the offensive side is what I saw. So, yeah, I think you pretty much hitting everything on the head so far when it comes down to topics.
Yeah, absolutely, Ike. And so, again, in the coming weeks, we'll get to this. Before we move on, I lied. I got one more question, Ike.
Okay.
What kind of food did you have in Mobile? I know you gave shout out at the top of the show to the 2 establishments that you went to. You said you ate some soul food. What'd you have while you were there?
The catfish with the shrimp and grits. So they had the catfish with the shrimp and grits. Then they wound up having they had a crawfish gravy, and they put the toasted garlic bread underneath like a little soup or something. Man, I damn near ate the whole stove when it came down to that. Man, I had to save some for other clients sitting up in that thing, man. So, man, the food over there was just, in the country, man, they just cook what they love to cook, so they cook with love. So when you cook with love, you can taste it. So that's what I had for dinner at Soko. From slippery foot, I just had like and what I had an omelet. My mama went in the back. Miss Cheryl, she went in the back. She was like, look, I'm gonna go on. I got some bread pudding and some sauce to put on top of it. I'm gonna put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna come back to you, and I wind up smoking that too. So it wasn't nothing but love coming from Mobile.
I love that, Ike. I've only driven through. I've been down to Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I hope you didn't have any war stories trying to get to Mobile, because I know a lot of people had trouble getting there from the
Yeah,
first place. But I'm glad you're back safe and everything too, and tremendous insight from the Senior Bowl. That game we played 2:30 Eastern time Saturday afternoon. The game itself and getting on-field access, I just a perspective we really can't get from anywhere else. But we will move on. A few other topics we need to talk about. There's some rumors out there, Ike. Speaking of DBs, whether the Steelers should pursue Rams cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Now, the Rams in a bit of a transition period because they really don't have any draft picks. The dinner bill is due after their Super Bowl title. And so this is a player who signed a $100 million contract for 5 years. So he's making an average of $20 million on this deal. Steelers don't have a ton of salary cap space as it stands right now. Obviously, they can change. They can restructure deals. They do it every year. But Ike, to me, the priority would be let's re-sign Cam Sutton. Let's maybe go after a DB in the draft, because I know the Steelers don't draft based on position need. They draft on best available. But you've got some studs at offensive line, defensive line, and corner in this draft. And in this draft, you can get a position player, whether it's a DB in the first round, the second round, who's going to not quite do what Jalen Ramsey does, but can be your corner for the future. So that's how I would approach this. I would say no to this, just given his price tag. 28 years old, an elite level player, Ike. But, what do you make of these rumors about the Steelers potentially pursuing Jalen Ramsey?
I mean, would you love to have a Jalen Ramsey on your team? Yes.
Yeah.
And just the personality. Jalen's just a damn dog on the field, and you can't coach that. So the question is, at what cost? And you just said it's going to cost you 20 per year. All right, Jalen, can we restructure your deal if you come to Pittsburgh? That would be on Jalen. The number will have to be good enough, and he will have to feel comfortable enough on that number. So yes, in my mind, I would love to have a Jalen Ramsey come to Pittsburgh and be able to play in that secondary. But like you say, we got 3 picks in the top 49 picks in a draft. So Pittsburgh can look at it both ways. We can holler at Jalen, give Jalen a number, see if he bite on it, or we can just work. We can just find something younger, cheaper, value, and can groom him into being what we want him to be in a draft. So that's what Pittsburgh gonna look at, both of the situations. But they like to build during the draft. Of late, when you get a Minka, a swap for a swap, we all see now that it just worked out perfect for Minka and the Pittsburgh Steelers are all pro pretty much every damn year. But yeah, Jalen, don't forget, Jalen is young too as well. 28 years old is young. I feel like Jalen can play till he's about 30, 32, 34. It just depends on Jalen. So he still got 4 good years left in him to be able to play at a high level. So it just depends on what the Pittsburgh Steelers thinking. But then again, you can get you a 22-and-a-half-year-old kid and, groom him into being the Steeler that you want him to be during the draft.
Can you imagine, though, you mentioned Minka Fitzpatrick, Minka and Jalen Ramsey paired together? You wouldn't be able to throw to an entire side of the field, so you're dictating what an offense has to try to do even to move the football. Like, that to me is just like that tandem of Minka and Jalen Ramsey would instantly be the NFL's best, the best 2 DB tandem in the league.
Yeah, no question. You got an all-pro corner, you got an all-pro safety. Both of them sitting in their prime. So and both of them, and Jalen comes with a huge personality on that field, and he brings the level of intensity sky high, satellite high, so to say. So that will help a secondary as well too. You can only imagine how much he's going to compete in practice. So him and George Pickens going at it. You can only imagine how in practice. So man, it's just when you got a guy like Jalen, you can't say there's too many Jalens in the league. There's only one Jalen. So you put him and Minka back down that secondary, man. If you're that other corner, you better watch out because you're gonna have a lot of. So either you're gonna be getting benched early or you're gonna be getting paid ASAP if you make plays. So that's how you got to look at it. from that standpoint if Jalen was to come to Pittsburgh.
That opportunity, Ike, and then if this were to come to fruition, and look, I mean, if I had to put a percentage on it, I wouldn't say it's high, but I think about it, if this were to come to fruition, think about what this does for TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Like, I think about it from the standpoint where, oh, I know that I have an opportunistic secondary sitting behind me that can cover for extended periods longer than your average player. Okay, I am going to break Michael Strahan's single season sack record. So the confidence and the swagger that Ramsey brings to the table too, like, it's a great point. And honestly, something that I didn't really even factor in, just because you look at his ability and, again, what he does to offenses, and based on reputation alone,
Right.
offenses aren't going to throw his way, just because he's proven time and time and time again what he can do in this league.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen, I mean, you saw what he did in Jacksonville. Jacksonville couldn't keep him because of the cost. Then you saw what he did, wind up getting a Super Bowl, and he was like one of the missing pieces for the LA Rams. But then when you talk to like guys on his team, they say as soon as Jalen stepped on the field, like the intensity just went all the way up. Like he made everybody get better. They say iron sharpens iron. So you can only imagine Cooper Rush just going against Jalen. I ain't gonna say Jalen going against Cooper Rush. I like Coop, but I love Jalen. So you can just imagine, man, them practices and the intensity level of them practices. That's why I said if Pittsburgh was to get Jalen, him and George going at it. So you got a guy in his prime and you got a pup who's an alien. So you can only he's just so having to be on the other side. So that would be crazy.
He had a career high 88 tackles in the 2022 season, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 4 interceptions, 18 passes defended, Ike. So still opportunistic, still had a very strong season, despite that the Rams as a team overall did not, as they were trying to defend their Super Bowl title. Now, a lot of injuries. Again, I make the analogy your Bills finally do, to where you got to pay other players and your team's not going to be same year to year. And that certainly happened with the Rams this season. But right. Ramsey at 28 years old, still playing at a very, very high level, like. And listen, I've got to list this out really quickly, Ike, for what the Steelers do, because right now, as it stands, they have about $1 million in salary cap space, but they can restructure deals. Mitch Trubisky's salary cap hit is going to be more than $10 million this upcoming season. Now, Steelers could save $8 million if they decide, hey, we're going to cut him outright. And remember, our guy Josh Dobbs is a free agent. So if the Steelers need a backup quarterback, I'm thinking from the standpoint of if you can get a similar level of production for half the cost, that's something that you strongly need to consider, because Kenny Pickett's going to be your starter from day one, mini camp, training camp, moving forward, preseason into the regular season next season. So do you want to pay Mitch Trubisky that much money as a backup? You might need him, though, because Pickett got hurt with his concussions this last year. So whoever the backup quarterback is, that's going to be important. Now, I don't think Rudolph will come back, but that's something that the Steelers are going to have to figure out in the offseason. Few other players that the Steelers would save money if they cut before June 1st. William Jackson III, the corner that they acquired, they'd save more than $12 million. Miles Jack at $8 million, Ahkello Witherspoon at $4 million. Gunnar Olszewski at $2 million, Montravius Adams at $2.5 million, Ike. Look, some of those players will be back in 2023, Ike, but of everyone I just named, at least one of those players on that list will not be a Steeler in 2023. I promise you that. No,
I ain't gonna blue check you, but you on point. You on point right now. I ain't gonna verify you right now, but you definitely coming up in our meetings. And you about to get the blue check. So, but yeah, you ain't too far for what you saying, Mark. You can't keep everybody. The salary cap does go up this year. I think it's going to be the highest ever in NFL history when the salary goes up. So we'll see when that sets. The Pittsburgh Steelers will have room to play with. Also, when in your GM and Omar Khan, he also deals with the cap and he's a salary guy. So you got a guy who pretty much do both. That was his forte before he became a GM. So he got a few tools in his toolbox when it comes down to adjusting the salaries and getting that cap to where it needs to get to. So yeah, they're going to restructure a few guys contracts on that list. A few guys ain't gonna be on the roster as well, but that's just a part of the business. But yeah, money is gonna get moved. And the cap will be as much money as the Pittsburgh Steelers need to work. They will figure that out.
Absolutely. This is something that like every year I freak out about. You've helped calm me down with the contract restructuring is a big thing. And I remember a few years back, they had to do that with Ben in his final year, and you get creative with it. But when you do this for as long as both the Rooneys have, Omar Khan, his predecessor, Kevin Colbert, there's a reason why the Steelers have been as successful as they are. But yeah, moving money around is essentially what's happening here. Trying to read the tea leaves, though, as well, Ike. We will move on, though. And Tom Brady announces his retirement, Ike. Is it for good, though?
Yeah, he came out with it first. I think the first he came out with it first on the second run. I think on the first one it was kind of leaked like he was thinking about retiring, and somebody said Tom Brady's going to retire, and Tom Brady was like, "Man, whoever's in my on my team or in my circle, they got to go." Because Tom Brady is supposed to be saying this, not nobody else. So I now since Tom Brady came out the second time and said it first, I think Tom was like on the first time, F it, I'm coming back just to give it one more shot. So Tom, came out on social media and said it himself that he's retiring. He ain't coming back. Tom ain't coming back. Tom feels like he did everything he needed to do. He gave it one last shot, came up short. Been playing for a long time. I mean, a man 45 years old at a high level. So, I don't call Tom the GOAT. I call Tom the statue. Tom just sits on Mount Rushmore all the way at the top, and everybody else just kind of falls underneath him. To have 7 Super Bowl rings, to go to 10, to do what Tom has done, to pass for over 100,000 yards between regular and playoffs, to have the most fourth quarter drives, to have the most clutch drives, to have the most touchdowns, like just to be able to play at 45 at a high level. Obviously, Father Time did catch up with him. You ain't going to beat Father Time. That's just what it is. And you saw that a little bit throughout this season. But I'm just super impressed on how good of a teammate Tom is. Anybody who talks about Tom who once was his teammate, they have nothing but good things to say. I mean, Tom always has been one of the guys. And usually quarterbacks, they're not one of the guys because they got to walk, talk, and act a certain way because they're the CEO, they're the face of the franchise. But Tom always been one of the guys, So when you got a 6th-round draft pick, always play with that chip on his shoulder, embrace the 53rd guy on the roster, always wanted the 53rd guy on the roster to be next to him in the locker room because them two have something to relate upon. That says a lot about Tom, and for Tom to leave New England, all the accomplishments he had in New England, and wind up going to Tampa during COVID, like the beginning of COVID when they was kicking him off of high school or recreational parks because he wanted to get some work in with his guys, and to be able to come off a couple of months and win the Super Bowl, that said it all for me. That just verified on how we thought as a player. Like, yeah, they had some good coaches in New England, and I'm not knocking Belichick or any other coach in New England, but we all felt like it was just Tom. Like Tom made everything go. And then when Tom left New England and come through during the COVID year, just a couple of months, down there, a couple of weeks, started off kind of slow, but you knew he was going to figure it out and wind up winning the Super Bowl. You're like, oh, yeah, I told y'all it was Tom. So Tom just been very impressive over the course of his career. But the most impressive thing for me is everybody who's been around Tom said he's a hell of a teammate and he always been one of the boys.
There's a great book called A Season in the Sun documenting the Buccaneers Super Bowl run written by Lars Anderson that talks about everything Brady needed to do working virtually with Bruce Arians, with Byron Leftwich, with his teammates, and the coordination that took during COVID. So I don't think that can be hit home hard enough because it was a different world when all that was going on. It was a very different offseason, unlike any we've ever seen due to the pandemic. You bring up a couple of other great points. A year ago when all this was going on, when the initial retirement was released, I was in the newsroom that day, and it initially got released through Tom Brady's TB12 Twitter account for his like hygiene, not hygiene, but for like his like athletic supplements and everything that he does with, the avocado ice cream, but, the fitness routine and then what he eats and what he consumes. I remember when the announcement came out, they had leaked out a tweet that then subsequently got deleted, and then Brady came out with it. And then I remember too, when he decided to come back several weeks later, it was on Selection Sunday, and they've got the selection show on CBS, Ike, and then you get into the bracketology where you get in the analysis of the men's bracket on ESPN. And I remember Adam Schefter coming on saying, now Tom Brady is coming out of retirement. And it's like, wait a second, I'm here to listen to basketball analysis of who I need to pick in the first, second rounds, who's making my Sweet 16. And Adam Schefter's coming on. It just about broke my brain, Ike, when Tom Brady decided to come out of retirement. If he does that again, to me, it will remind me a lot of the Brett Favre saga. And I remember they had the choppers going outside of Brett Favre's house at the facility, both in New York and in Minnesota, where you're in the dog days of summer, you're in June. Really, there's only baseball going on in the sports world, and it was must-watch television. I hope if Brady does decide this is it, that he is definite and this is his final decision. Ultimately, whatever he decides, like, we're going to watch because it's going to be must-watch TV.
No, Tom is here. Tom.
So you don't think, hang on, Ike, you don't think if there's a contender midway through next season that has an injury at the quarterback position to say, hey, Tom, we could use your help and your services, that he would want to do it?
Nah, because you're going to be on TV. I mean, a man just did a 10 for $375 million. 10 years, $375 million. So, yeah, he ain't really tripping. He can do whatever he want to do. He can still be in the game, but not be in the game. That's what Tom at. But the fact that Tom came out with it first says a lot. That says on the first go around, Tom, like, man, whoever was in his camp, like, man, y'all tripping. I gotta fire you. But Tom came out with it first, and he specifically said to himself that he gone. He started off with, man, I'm retiring. So Tom ain't coming back, man. Tom did everything he needed to do. Seven Super Bowls. So I got more Super Bowls than any other organization. That's what Tom walking around saying. That's what Tom said. Really, Tom is an organization. Like, have y'all been to Tom Brady? No, what's Tom Brady? Oh yeah, it's an organization with 7 Super Bowl rings. So that's how Tom walking around. That's how he talking. But the dude is very impressive, man. Tom ain't coming back. In my mind, I don't think Tom is coming back.
Yeah. And if he goes to the booth, though, I mean, Greg Olson's been outstanding for Fox. To me, that carousel in the broadcast booth, do you bring Brady in with Burkhart and Olson for Fox? Do we because here's the thing. It is Tom Brady. Everyone knows who Tom Brady is.
Right.
But Olson throughout this playoffs, Ike, I have been so impressed because like you, and you have this ability too, the way you're able to speak about the game, if you are very knowledgeable about football, you're teaching someone else something about football that they didn't know. But you're able to explain it in a way to someone who doesn't know the first thing about the sport to where it makes sense to them. That's rare, Ike.
Yeah, I appreciate you. It's a gift. It's a gift that I didn't know I had until really Troy, my teammate, told me this in coaching. He was like, bro, you're a real good coach. Like, he came down and saw me coach my son when my son was 10, a few games, him and Big Twan. And he was like, bro, I'm very impressed. He was like, bro, how you coach, like, I couldn't see it in you, Ike, until I actually sat on the field and saw you do it. So, I mean, you just verifying what Troy said as well. But, I don't know. It's a gift. It's a gift, Mark. I really can't explain it. The great teachers and professors, they can slim it down to where everybody can understand. A lot of people can't do that. And this from TV to our podcast to me talking and speaking in front of people. This just what it is. But it's a gift from God. That's how I look at it, Mark.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay. Final segment of the show, Ike. Super
Mhm.
Bowl 57 matchup is set. I swear you've been ducking me because I correctly predicted both of these teams getting into the game. We're going to be breaking this down in full all next week. But what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think the biggest storyline is going into Super Bowl 57? And again, we'll get into our full analysis next week. But if you had to pick one storyline going into this game, what is that in your opinion?
Man, it's Jalen versus P. Holmes. Like P. Holmes Patrick Mahomes, man, he just continues to impress. You know, I mean, high ankle sprain, limping like hell, and that ain't that they say knock on wood because I never had a high ankle sprain. They say you would rather break your leg than have a high ankle sprain because it's a nagging injury. But for Pat to come off a couple of days and for him to have to get that 3rd and 8, and running was gonna hurt him. Sitting in the pocket hurts, but actually running, like, man, this either KC in a Super Bowl or die. And just to see the way Patrick Mahomes pretty much just gave everything he had to win that ball game was very impressive. Very impressive. Because you now you see everything. If you let him sit in the pocket, which everybody keeps saying, when you let Patrick Mahomes sit in the pocket, he's not as magical. He proved that. Okay, now Patrick Mahomes, when he's healthy, he's hell. He'll throw for 4 touchdowns anytime he want to. Now let me see what Patrick Mahomes can do hurt on the high ankle sprain. So you catch it, like Patrick is doing everything. He's writing chapters in his book. Playing hurt, losing cheetah, playing healthy, finally beating Joe Burrow and company from losing 3 in a row. Like, he's showing you, and as a player, I just continue to keep watching him because you always want to see next phases of athletes. Okay, I know what he can do when he's healthy, but what he going to do when he hurt? Okay, all right, he lost probably the fastest dude in the league. All right, what he going to do? Okay, he got a short week of practice. Will he be the same Patrick Mahomes? No, I got to switch it up. Okay, now it's a crucial moment in the game where Patrick Mahomes be able to scramble. There you go. So Patrick Mahomes, over the course of his career, he has done nothing but just write chapters. If people paying attention in his life, his football life, that's very impressive, Mark.
My niece and nephew are growing up in the Kansas City area. My brother and we had the opportunity to grow up in the Chicago suburbs. So we got to appreciate Michael Jordan's greatness in the 90s. And we got to grow up with that. That was part of our childhood and our youth. And when I'm learning to read, write, and spell, when I'm learning numbers, 23 in the Bulls, Michael Jordan, it's synonymous with the city of Chicago. And I liken that to what Patrick Mahomes is doing in Kansas City, now that my family is there. And that's the level that I think about it, of they're going to get to root for someone who by and large is an upstanding guy in this league. And that, not to say anyone's perfect, but it warms my heart that this is someone he'll get to root on and cheer for as he learns the sport, and as he starts to grow up in life and learns to love sports, something that my dad passed down to me, Ike. And so outside of football, I take comfort in that with Patrick Mahomes and what the Chiefs have been able to do. Having said all of this, the way that the Eagles have played this season in a dominant fashion in a variety of ways,
Right.
I do think that they have to be favored in this game, and there's reason for that. And if I were picking right now, Ike, and we'll talk a lot about this next week, I'm picking the Eagles. And I look at the number of total rushing touchdowns they've scored this season, 39, most by a team in history. And you tell me all the time late in the season, and it's a cliche, and people can roll their eyes about it all they want to. Come November, December, January, February football, it's a little bit different than what you have early on in the season in September and October.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about P. Holmes, let's talk about Jay Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And the adversity Jay Hurts had to overcome when he got to. Matter of fact, let's swap it. Let's just go all the way back. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama.
Yeah,
So he
you're in
go
my brain, Ike.
yeah, he go from Alabama, wind up getting sat down in a whole national championship game, come back. So you know what? Let me go to Oklahoma. Go to Oklahoma. Damn it.
Hang on, Ike. Hang on, Ike. It was he gets benched in the national championship game, and then in the following season, Tua's the starter. Tua's struggling. Remember, they brought Hurts in off the bench in the SEC championship game, and he was ready, and he delivered. And he could have pouted and said, hey, I'm getting benched. I'm not getting my opportunity. But when his number was called and Bama needed it in an SEC title game in a must-win game, he delivered, Ike. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, so he got sat down, came back, delivered. Then he wound up going to Oklahoma, wind up almost winning the Heisman at Oklahoma. Getting drafted by a city in Philly, you know, it's tough in Philly. It's tough in Philly. I mean, when Philly first started 2 years ago when they got their head coach, they didn't start off too well, man. They was throwing roses at their coach, the fans. So everybody know when you go to Philly, it's going to be a tough city. Ain't no such, they say it's brotherly love, but that's a tough love in Philly. You got to be mentally strong if you're going to do anything in Philly. So he wound up coming to Philly, man. I don't think they really embraced him like that. You could just tell looking from a distance. But, man, he always overcame adversity. He always embraced adversity. But he always been like the natural leader, the natural captain. Like everybody who talked about Jalen Hurts, they had nothing but good things to say. Like everybody understood like Jalen Hurts could possibly outwork you in the weight room. Jalen Hurts going to study his butt off in the film room and do everything he needs to do. So Jalen Hurts is really and truly the franchise face of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jalen Hurts wind up getting hurt as well throughout the season. Well, what the hell he gonna do in the playoff time later on during the season? Can he shake back? Jalen Hurts done shook back. So yeah, Jalen Hurts for me, man, he checks every box you want him to check off on being a quarterback. So that's why when the moment is big, he's accustomed. He's just used to it. By the way, I got legs to run. So when you said 39 touchdowns, Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen got 15 of them 39 touchdowns, Mark. So now it's really and truly 11 on 11. And what I mean by 11 on 11 is, man, you got to have a spy. So when you have a spy, either you're taking somebody out the blitz or now it's one-on-one coverage between Adams and Brown, and, you know, they're going to give you hell. So it's just a special and unique situation over there. 2,000-yard receiver sitting over there. You got a 1,000-yard running back, and you got a quarterback who rushed for 15 touchdowns. That's very hard on the mentals as a DC. That's a nightmare. That's Freddy Krueger all day. That's Jason all day. That's Edward Scissorhands all day. That's Chucky all day if you're a defensive coordinator. So they just got something special going on. And I do agree with you, Mark. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will win the Super Bowl because I'm just looking at their defensive line. So they got a rotating between 6 to 7 coming off the bench. That's why them boys stay fresh. And all they say is go, green light. That's all that line do is green light everything. And they're able and they play off of each other. Usually when you see guys have success, you know, it's a lot of guys that, you know, like, why I ain't getting my sacks? Now all them guys embracing and love each other, and they all getting sacks just depending on the situation of the game. So and they acclaimed a few guys during the season from free agency, and they just hitting right now. So they clicking on all cylinders right now in the Philadelphia Eagles. There ain't nothing they can't do, to be honest with you. You know, you ain't got to blitz at all. You can just get the pressure all the time from the foe. And by the way, man, we got the best offensive line. Everybody on our offensive line is going to the Pro Bowl. So
yeah, they've got like 3 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line, Ike. And it was just like I had to do a double take when I was watching one of their playoff games. It was like, wait a second. It was just like, yeah, we're that dominant up front at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, they the complete package, Mark. I mean, and everything starts up front. You know, I got a hell of a D line. I got the best O line. And from that point, you ain't really got to say too much because from a front office standpoint, that's exactly what you want. You want the best D-line, you want the best O-line, and the coaches, they can pretty much coach however they want to coach after that. But that's the foundation of a house. You know, we use this analogy. You know, when you build a house, you build it from the ground up. And that's exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles did on both sides. They built it from the line up.
Ike, next week will be Super Bowl Media Day. What was the best question you got asked as a player?
Man, I don't even know, man. We were clowning so much. Mark, me and my homeboys on that media day sitting up on the podiums. Mark, we were clowning, cutting up. We was cutting up. We were having so much fun. Really, that got me into TV because ain't nobody really know my personality. So, doing the interviews and getting on the podium, they're like, hold on, Lil Slim got a little swag with him.
Mm.
And once that came out, then that's when the calls start coming in about, possibly being guest on shows. So I just had to figure out who I was on TV. So, and I remember producer just told me, be you. He said, don't worry about how you talk. Don't worry about your accent. He was like, you know enough information, and the way you say it, you're going to capture more people's attention on just being you. And once he told me that, I just took off. Because they was trying to get me to, a speech pathologist and all that good stuff. And my producer, he was like, hell no, we ain't doing none of that with Ike. Like, Ike ain't about to sound like everybody else. Just let Ike be Ike, and the ratings will go through the roof. I'm telling you.
Smart.
And what happened?
Smart. And our people that watch this show, Ike, I always like it's that New Orleans and it's the Cajun twang. And
yeah.
I've learned to embrace it, Ike.
I like that, Mark, the Cajun twang. I like that, bro. I gotta use that.
Ike, you're the absolute best. This has been an awesome show, and I'm excited to be talk with you in the coming weeks as we get closer to the draft. Next week's going to be all catered. We're going to get you ready for Super Bowl 57, Ike. Wouldn't be surprised if we have more guests pop up here on the show too. Go check out, talk with Joey Christopoulos of Bleav in Bears. He co-hosts with Corey Wooten, former Bears defensive end. We had Craig Wolfley on several weeks back. We're going to keep getting better and better guests this year, Ike. So we've got the big game in Super Bowl 57, Chiefs and Eagles. And then once we get into the offseason, Ike, to where the action's done, I honestly think that's where you shine the best in your evaluation with scouting ahead of April's draft.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro.
Ike, I want to thank you. I want to thank the Bleav Network, our presenting sponsor today, betonline.ag, and the listeners and the viewers of the Bleav in Steelers show. Keep rocking with us. We're going to give you the best insight for the rest of this season, well into the offseason as well. So keep here. Give us that 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube as well, tap that subscribe button, share the show with a family or a friend.
Yeah, I want to thank Bleav in Steelers podcast. I want to thank you, Mark, as well. Got to give a huge shout out to betonline.ag. And got to give a big shout out to all the viewers who view us. Make sure y'all hit that 5-star rating as well. But, man, I appreciate everybody just tuning in to Mark and I. Thanks for giving us y'all time and y'all ears for listening to our show as well.
A lot of valuable insight there, Ike, and I'm excited to talk Super Bowl 57 with you next week. Until then, we'll see you next time. Take care, and so long, everybody.
Peace.